Hi, Maria Williams here. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to make these cards, specifically the one on the right, how to put the skunk together, and also give you a tip for how to use the fringe scissors. I'm using the Foxy Friedns photopolymer bundle, which consists of the stamp set and the punch, and I'm also using the Here For You photopolymer stamp set. I'm using the Well, This Just Stinks for the outside, and for the inside, I'm using the sentiment that says, sorry I don't have something more profound or poetic or sentimental to say, but I just want you to know how very much I love you and care about you. I'm starting out with a piece of Whisper White cardstock that is 4 by 4 inches and a piece of Old Olive cardstock that is 4 inches by 2 1/8 inches. And I'm just taking some black archival ink and stamping the sentiment onto the piece of Old Olive fairly close to the bottom. And then I am taking some chocolate chip ink and I have mounted the mushrooms onto one block. I already kind of figured out how far apart they needed to be so that I could stamp them all at once. So I'm doing that. And then I'm going to go ahead and grab my fringe scissors and also a scrap piece of cardstock that I have cut to 1 1/4 inches wide. And in order to get all the cuts the same depth on the piece of Old Olive, I am using that piece of cardstock kind of as a stopper. So I have to make sure that the tip of the scissors is beyond the edge of the brown cardstock so that when I'm cutting, I will feel that pressure and I can stop cutting at that point. And that way, all my cuts will be exactly the same depth. Now I'm going to stamp the top of the card. So I'm taking some Old Olive ink and I'm taking the sort of leaf arch that comes in the Foxy Friedns stamp set, and I've mounted a tree also on the other side of the block. I hope this isn't confusing, but I'm inking up the arch and I'm going to stamp it towards the top of my Whisper White panel. And then I'm going to flip the block over and I'm going to stamp 2 trees onto the card, but I'm not going to stamp these full strength. I'm going to stamp off onto my scrap piece of paper and then stamp onto my card. And I'm stamping one tree a little bit higher than the other one. The skunk's tail is going to go over to the right side of the card, so I figured I would stamp the tree on the right a little bit lower. Next, I'm going to start assembling the skunk. So I'm taking a piece of basic black cardstock and punching out all the pieces. I'm going to need the tail, the body, and the head. I don't need anything else. And then I am taking a piece of Whisper White and punching out the tail and the little white accent that's going to go at the top of the head of the skunk. And the other parts that I'm going to need for the skunk are going to have to be stamped first. So I'm taking one of the sets of eyes and nose that come in the Foxy Friedns stamp set, and I'm going to stamp it kind of at an angle. This will make it really easy for me to insert the piece of cardstock into the punch and not cut a lot of extra little bits and pieces. And before I stamp the belly, I'm going to go ahead and trim the accent for the skunk's tail. So I'm taking a strip of Post-it note, the one that just has adhesive on the top, and I'm placing the white tail that I punched out onto it, and I'm just going to insert it into the punch so that it gets trimmed. The left side of it gets cut off. And this is what that piece looks like when you place it on top of the punched out tail. Before I move on to stamping the belly of the skunk, I'm going to go ahead and use my two-way glue and glue all the little white pieces to the black pieces. I don't use this glue a lot, but for this I thought it was great because I could hold the little piece in my hand, put the adhesive on the back, and glue it right down. And this glue doesn't run at all. You do have to make sure that you go ahead and attach the pieces before it becomes repositionable, because as the name says, it's two-way glue, so once you let it dry without placing it onto another piece of cardstock, it will become repositionable. Now, I'm not going to attach the individual pieces of the skunk to the other pieces. I'm just going to attach them to the card with dimensionals once I have attached the 2 panels to the front of the card. To complete the skunk, I'm taking another small piece of Whisper White cardstock, and I'm taking a heart from the Tin of Cards stamp set, but you could use any little heart that you may have, or you could even do a flower. And I'm using some real red ink to ink it up, and I'm just going to stamp it somewhere around the middle of my little strip of cardstock. And then I'm taking the large animal stamp from the Foxy Friedns stamp set, and I'm inking up just the body. I don't need the tail, I don't need the head, but I do want to make sure that I really ink this up really well so that I get a really dark impression. And then I'm going to look through that clear part of the belly to make sure that my heart is between the two hands, excuse me, the two paws. And then I'm going to trim this up with scissors, but I'm going to actually let it dry for a little bit because I made sure this was really inked up. I want to give it a little bit of time to dry so that I don't smear the image. So in the meantime, I'm taking some chocolate chip ink and the tree stump, and I'm stamping that onto a piece of crumb cake cardstock. And I'm also going to just fussy cut this with my scissors. It won't take long. I don't really have to worry about being real neat at the bottom of the stump because that's going to be covered by the grass. And I don't need to be too neat on the top part of the stamp. That will be the back because that is going to be covered by the skunk's body. So this really does go pretty fast. Before I fussy cut the belly of the skunk, I'm going to go ahead and put the front of the card together. So I'm just using some snail adhesive for the top front panel. And then before I attach the bottom panel, I'm going to take some black and white twine and wrap it around a couple of times and tie a bow in the center. A quick little tip for tying bows out of twine is to make a knot before you actually tie the bow part. It doesn't work well with ribbon, but with twine, since it's so thin, you can tie the knot and then do the bow. So now I can use a little bit more snail and attach this bottom panel to my card. I'm going to attach the stump and the skunk to the front of my card using dimensionals. So I'm taking a couple and applying them to the back of the stump. I'm going to tuck the stump behind the grass. And then now that my belly for the skunk is totally dry, I'm going to fussy cut it with my little scissors, making sure that I'm leaving a little bit of a black border all the way around. I'm using the two-way glue again to attach the belly to the body. And all that is left now is to attach all the pieces of the skunk to the front of the card with dimensionals. Since the tail of the skunk is pretty skinny, I am cutting one dimensional in half and putting the two pieces along the tail, tucking it behind the skunk on the card, and the front of the card is finished. For the inside of the card, I'm using a Whisper White panel that is cut to 3 7/8 inches by 5 1/8 inches, which is basically 3/8 of an inch smaller on both sides than the outside of the card. And I'm inking up the sentiment with black archival ink, stamping it in the center, and then taking the same greenery that I used on the front of the card, inking it up in Old Olive again, and stamping it around the sentiment. And then I'm taking the mushrooms again, and because the panel is smaller than the green panel on the front of the card, the mushrooms were too close to the edges, so I decided to go ahead and stamp them separately so they look a little bit better. So now that my inside panel is totally done, I just need to put a little adhesive on the back and place it on the inside of the card, and my card is finished. I hope you like this card. I think it's really cute and can be used for many different situations. Thanks so much for watching. If you would like to see additional pictures or information on the products used, please visit my blog at mariascardsandmore.com. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up.